Have you ever felt stuck when speaking English, constantly translating in your head?
That's one of the biggest reasons people struggle to sound fluent.
Translating every word before speaking slows you down and makes conversations feel unnatural.
But what if I told you there's a way to start thinking directly in English?
Today, we're going to show you a simple method to stop translating and finally think like a native speaker.
This small change will make a huge difference in how confident and fluent you sound.
And the best part? It's easier than you think.
But before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our lessons on speaking English fluently.
All right, let's get into it. First, we need to understand why we translate in the first place.
Your brain is used to processing everything in your native language.
This habit was formed over years of learning and speaking in that language.
But the good news is that you can retrain your brain to think in English naturally.
The key is to create direct connections between English words and their meanings.
And in just a few minutes, we'll show you exactly how to do that.
One of the biggest challenges when learning a new language is that our brain wants to stick to what it already knows. So, when you hear an English sentence, your first instinct is to translate it into your native language before understanding it. But that extra step slows you down and makes conversations harder.
Imagine trying to have a quick conversation with someone, but every time they say something, you have to pause, translate each word in your head, and then form a response. That's why many learners struggle with fluency, because their brain is working in two languages at once instead of thinking directly in English.
The reason this happens is because, for years, we were taught English through translation. In school, you probably learned vocabulary lists with direct translations or memorized phrases instead of naturally absorbing the language like a native speaker would. This is a habit that we need to break.
Think about how children learn their first language. They don't translate words in their heads before speaking. They connect words directly to ideas, objects, and emotions. That's exactly what we need to do to start thinking in English without translating every sentence.
The good news is that your brain is capable of adapting. If you start practicing the right way, you can rewire your thinking process to associate English words with their meanings instead of their translations. And when that happens, your fluency will skyrocket.
So, how do we do that? How do we train our brain to think directly in English? The answer lies in immersive learning techniques, methods that help you experience English naturally, just like a native speaker does. And we're going to share some powerful strategies with you right now.
But before we get into those strategies, there's one important mindset shift you need to make. Stop aiming for perfection. Many learners hesitate to speak in English because they fear making mistakes. But mistakes are part of the learning process, and the more you practice, the faster you'll improve. One of the best ways to stop translating in your head is to surround yourself with English as much as possible. The more your brain is exposed to English, the more it will start recognizing patterns naturally, without needing to translate every word.
Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't sit in a classroom memorizing vocabulary. You were constantly surrounded by the language, hearing it in different situations. That's exactly what you need to do with English.
So, what does that look like in real life? It means changing small things in your daily routine. For example, switch your phone's language to English, listen to English podcasts while commuting, and watch TV shows without subtitles.
And don't just listen passively, engage with the content. Repeat phrases out loud, pause and try to predict what the speaker will say next, or summarize what you just heard in your own words. This forces your brain to process English actively.
Another powerful technique is to think in English throughout the day. If you see a car passing by, instead of thinking carro in your native language, say car in your head. Start small. Describe what you're doing, what you see around you, and how you feel, all in English.
This might feel strange at first, but over time, your brain will get used to forming thoughts in English. The more you practice, the faster you'll develop this skill, and soon it will become natural.
And remember, don't worry about making mistakes in your head. The goal is to get comfortable thinking in English without hesitating. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Another common mistake learners make is trying to find the perfect English word that matches their native language. But languages don't work that way. Translations are rarely exact, and words often carry different meanings depending on the context.
That's why it's so important to focus on understanding the general meaning instead of searching for a perfect translation. When you hear a new word, try to guess its meaning from the context instead of immediately translating it.
For example, if you hear, "I was thrilled to see my friend," and you don't know the word thrilled, think about the situation. If someone is happy to see their friend, thrilled must mean something like very happy.
Exactly. This method, called contextual learning, helps your brain connect words to ideas instead of translations. Over time, your brain will start recognizing these patterns naturally, just like a native speaker.
Another great trick is to learn English in chunks. Instead of memorizing single words, focus on common phrases and expressions. Native speakers don't think word by word. They think in complete ideas.
For example, instead of memorizing make and decision separately, learn the phrase make a decision as a unit. This way, when you need to use it, your brain will recall the full phrase, making it easier to speak fluently.
This approach will also help with speed. When you stop translating and start thinking in ready-made phrases, your responses in English become much faster and more natural.
And the best part? You'll stop overanalyzing grammar and just speak. The goal is not perfection, it's communication. The more you use these strategies, the more confident you'll become in your English thinking skills.
One of the most powerful ways to start thinking in English is to create an immersive environment. Even if you don't live in an English-speaking country, you can surround yourself with the language every day. Change your phone settings to English, watch movies without subtitles, and listen to English music or podcasts as often as possible.
The goal is to expose your brain to English constantly. The more you hear and see the language, the more your brain adapts to recognizing words and phrases without translating them. This is how babies learn a language. They don't memorize vocabulary lists. They hear words in context and absorb them naturally.
Another great technique is to narrate your daily life in English. Try describing what you're doing in simple sentences. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making coffee. I'm leaving for work. This forces your brain to form thoughts in English without relying on your native language.
And don't worry if your sentences aren't perfect. The goal is fluency, not accuracy at this stage. The more you practice, the faster your brain will get used to forming thoughts in English. Over time, you'll notice that certain words and phrases come to mind naturally, without any effort.
A fun way to challenge yourself is to have imaginary conversations in English. Pretend you're ordering food at a restaurant, introducing yourself to a new friend, or answering interview questions. This helps your brain get comfortable forming English sentences without translating.
And if you make a mistake, that's actually a good thing. Mistakes mean you're pushing your limits and learning. The more you experiment, the faster your brain adapts to thinking in English automatically. Remember, progress comes from practice, not perfection.
Another key strategy is to use visual thinking. Instead of associating English words with their translations, try linking them directly to images and concepts. For example, when you hear apple, don't think of the word in your native language. Visualize an actual apple in your mind.
This technique, called direct association, helps your brain make faster connections. Native speakers don't translate words in their heads. They recognize words instantly because they're directly linked to ideas, emotions, and real-world experiences.
To make this process even stronger, try using flashcards with pictures instead of translations. Apps like Anki or Quizlet can help you practice words visually. The goal is to break the habit of translating and start recognizing English as its own system.
And don't forget to think in emotions, too. If you hear a word like exciting, don't just think of the definition. Imagine a moment when you felt excited, like riding a roller coaster or receiving great news. Emotional connections make words easier to remember.
Another way to practice thinking in English is to describe objects around you. Wherever you are, try to name things in English and create short sentences. For example, if you're in your kitchen, say, "This is a spoon," "The coffee is hot," "I need to wash the dishes."
This habit trains your brain to think directly in English. At first, it might feel slow, but with practice, you'll notice that your thoughts start forming more quickly and naturally. This is how fluency develops, step by step, with small but consistent efforts.
The key is daily exposure. Even just 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference over time. The more you practice these techniques, the easier it will become to think in English without effort.
So, challenge yourself today. Pick one technique, whether it's narrating your actions, visualizing words, or having imaginary conversations, and start using it right now. The more you engage with English actively, the closer you get to fluency.
Thinking in English is a skill that takes time, but with daily practice, it becomes easier. The key is to be patient with yourself and trust the process.
Remember, the goal is not perfection, but progress. Every small step you take, whether it's describing your surroundings, narrating your actions, or practicing visualization, brings you closer to fluency.
The more you expose yourself to English, the more natural it will feel. Your brain will start making connections faster, and soon you will realize you're understanding and responding without translating.
Mistakes are part of the journey. Instead of feeling frustrated, see them as proof that you're improving. Every time you push yourself to think in English, you're training your brain to get better.
So, keep practicing. Try speaking to yourself in English throughout the day, even if it's just in your thoughts. This small habit will make a big difference over time.
And if you ever feel stuck, remind yourself why you started learning English in the first place. Stay motivated and don't let small challenges stop you from reaching your goal.
The best way to make this process fun is to connect it with things you enjoy. Watch movies, read books, or listen to music in English. It should feel like a natural part of your life.
With time and consistency, thinking in English will become second nature. Keep pushing yourself, stay curious, and embrace the learning process.
Now that you know how to stop translating in your head, take the next step. Watch our next video to keep improving your fluency and become more confident in English.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more tips. Keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.